1948 Indo Pak War, also known as the First Kashmir War. So now the contents. Introduction, Partition of India, Initial Invasion, Indian Operation in the Kashmir Valley, Attempted link-up at Poonch and fall of Mirpur, fall of Jahangir and attacks on Nowshera and Uri, Operation Vijay, counterattack to Jahangir, Indian Spring Offensive, Operations Gulab and Erase, Operation Bison, Operation Easy, Poonch link-up, moves up to ceasefire, gallantry award, and references. Introduction. The Indian-Pakistan War of 1947 to 48 fought between India and Pakistan over the princely state of Kashmir and Jammu from 1947 to 1948. It was the first of four wars fought between the two newly independent nations. On 22 October 1947, Muslim tribal militias crossed the border of the state, claiming that they were needed to suppress a rebellion in the southeast of the kingdom. मतलब कि वो जो है ना वो गए उधर रिवेलियन को सप्रेस करने के लिए साउथ ईस्ट ऑफ द किंगडम में ये जो थे ये पाकिस्तानी फोर्सेस श्रीनगर लेने गई पर आगे से उन्हें रेजिस्टेंस मिली उड़ी के मकाम पर हरी सिंह जो था हमारा कह रहा हूँ कश्मीर का राजा तो उसने इंडिया से मदद मांगी और इंडिया ने उसे मदद दी but it was subject to his signing an instrument of accession to India. The ruler of the princely state of Kashmir and Jammu, who was a Hindu, signed an instrument of accession to the Union of India. The Indian and Pakistani armies entered the war after this. The fronts solidified gradually along what came to be known as the line of control. A formal ceasefire was declared at 23:59 on the night of 1 and 2nd January 1949. Prior to 1815, the area known as Jammu and Kashmir comprised 22 small independent states, 16 Hindu and 6 Muslim, carved out of territories controlled by the Amir, king of Afghanistan, combined with those of local small rulers. These were collectively referred to as the Punjab Hill States. These small states ruled by Rajput kings were variously independent, vassals of the Mughal Empire since the time of Emperor Akbar or sometimes controlled from Kangra state in the Himachal area. Following the decline of the Mughals' turbulence in the Kangra and Gorkha invasions, the hill states fell one by one under the dominance of the Sikhs under Ranjit Singh. Gulab Singh became the first Maharaja of the newly formed princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, founding a dynasty that was to rule the state, the second largest principality during the British Raj until India gained its independence in 1947. Now, the partition of India. The partition of British India and the independence of the new dominions of India and Pakistan was the result of the Indian Independence Act 1947. Now the article of the Act provided the termination of the British suzerainty over the princely states with effect from 15 August 1947, recognized from the right of the states to choose whether to accede to India or to Pakistan or to remain outside them. Faced with painful choices, the Maharaja of Kashmir, Hari Singh, decided to avoid accession to either country, meaning that he doesn't want to join any of them. Following a Muslim revolution in the Poonch and Mirpur area and an allegedly Pakistani-backed Pashtun tribal intervention from the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa aimed at supporting the revolution, the Maharaja asked for Indian military assistance. Like Pakistan pushed its way into the India and the Maharaja was forced to ask the Indian government to help them. India set a condition that Kashmir must accede to India for it to receive assistance. Well, that was a deal that was made by India. The Maharaja complied and the government of India recognized the accession of the princely state to India. Indian troops were sent to the state to defend it. The Gilgit and Baltistan territories were secured for Pakistan by the Gilgit Scouts and the Chitral Scouts of the state of Chitral, one of the princely states of Pakistan, which had acceded to Pakistan on 6 October 1947. This is the initial invasion of irregular forces. Gulmarg, 22 to 26 October 1947. They attacked in this area of Gulmarg. Initial invasion. Indian defense of the Kashmir Valley under the state forces stationed in the border regions around Muzaffarabad and Doom were quickly defeated by tribal forces. Some Muslim state forces mutinied and joined them, and the way to the capital was open. Among the raiders there were many active Pakistani soldiers disguised as tribals. They were also provided logistical help by the Pakistan Army. Rather than advancing towards Srinagar before state forces could regroup or be reinforced, the invading forces remained in the captured cities in the border. Among the raiders, there were many active Pakistani soldiers. In the Poonch Valley, the Soviet forces retreated into towns where they were besieged. This is the Indian defense of the Kashmir Valley, 27 October 1947 to 17 November 1947. Indian operation in the Kashmir Valley. Indian defense of the Kashmir Valley with November after the accession of India had lifted troops and equipment to Srinagar, where they reinforced the princely state forces, established a defense perimeter and defeated the tribal forces on the outskirts of the city. The successful defense included an outflanking maneuver by Indian armored cars. The defeated tribal forces were pursued as far as Baramulla and Uri, and these towns were captured. In the Poonch Valley, tribal forces continued to besiege state forces. In Gilgit, the state paramilitary forces, called the Gilgit Scouts, joined the invading tribal forces, who thereby obtained control of this northern region of the state. The tribal forces were also joined by troops from Chitral, whose ruler, the Mayor of Chitral, had acceded to Pakistan. This is the attempted link-up at Poonch, 18 November 1947 to 26 November 1947. Indian forces created pursuit of tribal forces after recapturing Uri and Baramulla and sent a relief column southward in an attempt to relieve Poonch. Although the relief column eventually reached Poonch, the siege could not be lifted. A second relief column reached Kotli and evacuated the garrisons of the town and others, but were forced to abandon of it being too weak to defend it. Meanwhile, Mirpur was captured by the tribal forces on 25 November 1947. Now the fall of Jahangir. The tribal forces attacked and captured Jahangir. They then attacked Nowshera unsuccessfully and made a series of unsuccessful attacks on Uri. In the south, a minor Indian attack secured Chamb. In this stage of the war, the front line began to stabilize as more Indian troops became available. Operation Vijay. The Indian forces launched a counter-attack in the south, recapturing Jahangir and Rajaudi. In the Kashmir Valley, the tribal forces continued attacking the Uri garrison. In the north, Skardu was brought under the siege by the Gilgit Scouts. Indian Spring Offensive. The Indians held on to Jahangir against numerous counterattacks, who were increasingly supported by regular Pakistani forces. In the Kashmir Valley, the Indians attacked, recapturing Tithwael. The Gilgit Scouts made good progress in the high Himalayas sector, infiltrating troops to bring Leh under siege, capturing Kargil and defeating a relief column heading for Skardu. Now Operation Gulab and Erase. They to attack in the Kashmir Valley sector, driving north to capture Kiran and Gurez. Operation Erase. They also repelled a counterattack aimed at Titwal. In the Jammu region, Poonch broke out and temporarily linked up with the world again. The Kashmir State Army was to defend Skardu from the Gilgit Scouts, impeding their advancement to the Indus Valley towards Leh. In August, the Chitral forces under Mataul Mulk besieged Skardu and with the help of artillery were able to take Skardu. This freed the Gilgit Scouts to push further into Ladakh. Operation Duck, 15 August 1948 to 31 October 1948. Operation Bison. Main article: military operations in Ladakh. During this time, the front began to settle down. The siege of Poonch continued. An unsuccessful attack was launched by 77 Parachute Brigade, Brigadier Atal, to capture Zoji La Pass. Operation Duck. The earlier epithet for this assault was renamed as Operation Bison by Cariappa. MS Stuart light tanks of 7 cavalry were moved in dismantled conditions through Srinagar and pinched across bridges, while 2 field companies of the Madras snipers converted the mule track across Zojila into a jeep track. The surprise attack on 1 November by the brigade with armor supported by 2 regiments of 25-pounders and a regiment of 3.7-inch guns forced the pass and pushed the tribal Pakistan forces back to Matayan and later Tras. The brigade linked up on 24 November at Kargil with Indian troops advancing from Leh, while their opponents eventually withdrew northward towards Skardu. The operation finally moved up to ceasefire At this stage, Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru decided to ask UN to intervene. A UN ceasefire was arranged for the 31 December 1948, a few days before the ceasefire. The Pakistanis launched a counterattack which cut the road between Uri and Poonch. Now moving up to the ceasefire. The terms of the ceasefire as laid out in the United Nations resolution of 13 August 1948 were adopted by the UN on 5 January 1949. This required Pakistan to withdraw its forces both regular and irregular while allowing India to maintain minimum strength of its forces in the state to preserve law and order. On compliance of these conditions, a plebiscite was to be held to determine the future of the territory, which is not held yet by the United Nations. So the future of the Kashmir is still unclear, and our supreme leaders or our parliamentarians only use it as a vote of sympathy for the people to gain vote to win elections, and they really do nothing about it, just come and talk to the mic. Now, in all, 1,500 soldiers died on each side during the war, and Pakistan was able to acquire roughly 2/5 of Kashmir, was that including 5 of the 14,800 peaks in the world, while India maintained the remaining 3/5 of Kashmir, including the most populous and fertile regions. Thank you. Now, what I wanted to prove in this presentation was to show that really we need to know what's on the other side of the story. Like, what are they going to say? Like, according to India, I मतलब कि मैंने ये सब stuff जमा किया and ये सब तो थी किताबी बातें, but now coming to the point that it was it's a mutual territory. Like we हमने 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 पंगा लिया, फिर they retaliated and we did it again and they retaliated again. Like it's happening now and right. मतलब कि ये हो रहा है, ये चल रहा है. तो nothing can be done until the plebiscite is held in the Kashmir by United Nations, and we are hopeful it will be. Thank you.